So Frankie Edgar is taking on Ben Henderson, UFC 144 in Japan. And Frankie's 3-0-1 in his last, 4 fights. He had that tie against Gray Maynard. And he made up for it last time, completed the trilogy. But his journey's not going to get any easier for Edgar because he's got to take on Henderson now. And I think Henderson's actually tougher than Gray Maynard and tougher than BJ. I really think that BJ was on his way out. He beat up Diego really bad, and he beat Joe Stevenson, who really wasn't so great if you look back on it. Joe Stevenson's out of UFC. So BJ, he got beaten up against Nick Diaz, and he retired. And you saw that, BJ might not have been the best. And I don't really think, Gray Maynard is the best either. I think there's a lot of good light guys in the lightweight division. I think Jim Miller might become champion pretty soon and hold it. But Gray Maynard, his strength really isn't boxing. You know what I mean? Like, he's a wrestler. And, his stand-up, it's not great. He's not bad at anything. He's a tough guy, but his stand-up's not great. And he really, for a lot of it, beat up Frankie Edgar boxing. So, people say that Frankie Edgar's got this great boxing, but maybe it's not that great. And I really think that Ben Henderson's going to beat Frankie Edgar. I know a lot of people are going to disagree because Frankie Edgar's the champion. But, Ben Henderson's bigger and stronger, and he really tries to finish fights. If you look at Ben Henderson's record, or if you just watch him fight, he fights to finish, which is not what Frankie Edgar does. Frankie Edgar is fighting for the decision. And, I guess he won all decisions lately. In UFC, I'm talking about Ben Henderson. But, before that, when we saw him in WEC, he was submitting people, knocking people out, and once in a while winning the decision. So, even in UFC, even though he won decisions, he tried to finish the fight, And I think he deserves this fight. I know if he wins it, they're going to put him up against Pettis pretty soon. Maybe a rematch with Edgar, but Pettis is going to jump into the picture. And Jim Miller, because Jim Miller beat him. He beat Jim Miller, and Pettis beat him. So, those are the guys who are going to be in the mix. Anyway, Frankie Edgar has won so many decisions in UFC. And if he wins another decision this time around, I think it's going to be pretty disappointing, UFC, to see 5 rounds and Frankie, running basically the whole fight. Even though Frankie runs, I do think he's talented. I really do. He will take you down, and you really can't beat him at much. But he doesn't really fight to finish. So my prediction, UFC 144, is either Ben Henderson by decision or Ben Henderson by submission. I think if the fight goes to the floor, Frankie Edgar is going to see that Ben Henderson's a lot stronger than him. And he's really not going to do well on the floor. So his best chance is boxing. And I see Ben Henderson, hanging on the feet. And if the fight goes to the floor, submission. But all around, I think Ben Henderson's going to win a decision if the fight does go 5 rounds. So, fellow New Yorker here, I do like Frankie Edgar, but I think he's going down UFC 144.